Ladies and gentlemen, I want to read you a little something from constitution.congress.gov. While the Constitution does not expressly confer upon the executive branch any such privilege, the Supreme Court has held that executive privilege derives from the constitutional separation of powers and from a necessary and proper concept respecting the carrying out of duties of the presidency imposed by the Constitution. Now, in the Nixon years, some of that, the interpretation changed a bit because there was a break-in. There was a specific crime, unlike the investigations into Trump, where they're desperately trying to find something. Furthermore, Jack Smith, the special counsel, is not part of Congress. He's part of the executive branch, the DOJ, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They're part of the executive branch. Okay? And it's been 2 years. He hasn't committed a crime. They're trying to find out if, in January, one of his conversations leads to a crime because it's a criminal investigation of Trump. Every criminal investigation of Trump is an investigation to see if he actually committed a crime. Otherwise, he would have already been indicted or charged. It took Nixon about less than a year. Less than a year to just leave, about a year to leave office after the Watergate break-in. Less than a year, I believe. So, you can look and Watergate break-in timeline. There you go. They were indicted in 1972, September 15th. And then November 1972, and then January 1973, he was already out of office. Anyway, the point is, Nixon resigned. Nixon resigned on August 9th, 1974. Okay, so 2 years. On August 9th, 1974, facing almost certain impeachment. It took about 2 years. But there was a criminal act called a break-in, and people were already indicted for that break-in almost immediately. So in 1972, there was the break-in. The point is that the Supreme Court's going to rule in Trump's favor. Because with Nixon, there was Congress after him, and there was a specific crime. Okay? With Trump, he's asking a federal court right now to block testimony. He's asking a federal court right now to block testimony from a grand jury. The grand jury isn't even looking at a specific crime that Trump committed. They're trying to gather information that pertaining to a possible crime. Okay? So, with Nixon, there was a break-in. People were sent to prison, indicted, and then sent to jail for a break-in. People were sent to jail for covering up the burglary, a criminal act. And Nixon had tapes that Congress wanted, and eventually he was part of the cover-up and had to, or likely part of the break-in also in many ways, and had to resign. Very simple. The special counsel wants Pence to testify, and the Supreme Court will almost certainly back Trump. Special counsel isn't even Congress. So any of the Supreme Court rulings pertaining to Watergate, where they say, well, Congress is also separation of powers, and if the president committed a crime, then Congress has the right. Well, but there was no specific crime that Trump is accused of committing. They say his words compelled people to do bad things. It's been 2 years. They could have, it doesn't take 2 years to find out. It took less than a year, months to find out who did Well, they found out immediately with the Watergate break-in who broke into the building. Hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'll have a live stream later this evening. I'll have a live stream at around 8:30 p.m. Pacific time tonight. So hit subscribe. Go to hagoodman.com to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, and other publications. And to my super thank you. That's below, next to the like and the share buttons. And my Patreon is below if you want to support my work long term. Your Patreon support is greatly appreciated. But you have these people, and it's like you have this obsession with Trump. But I don't know what crime did he commit? Well, he did a lot of things in January. Well, then why hasn't he been indicted? Well, they're still investigating. They're investigating because there's no predicate crime. There's no specific crime that he committed. There's no specific crime that he committed or that he is that he is trying to cover up. Okay? With Trump, they start investigations for public relations purposes because they despise him. They can't say that their policies are better. So they level the U.S. government against him. And it's pretty obvious. And then they fall back and they feign indignation and they say, how dare you say we're political? That's all they do. That's all they do. Everyone knows that they go after Trump because they despise him. And they just want to torment him because almost half the electorate will always side with Trump. He's far and away the number one Republican, he's going to be the Republican nominee, GOP nominee. There's nobody close. I like DeSantis, but he's not even close. They can't stop Trump. They can only obsess over him and try their best to create as much distrust, contempt, suspicion. Their whole point, when you talk about Democrats and media and like there's two special counsels against Trump. There's been two special counsels, two impeachments. The first impeachment, they haven't even proved that he actually engaged in a quid pro quo. Even the president of that country stated it never happened. It was an ellipsis. They went from an ellipsis to you trying to withhold, and they got the assistance. And it was actual lethal aid, not like what President Obama gave. But nothing, like no amount of facts and reason and logic can dissuade a person who doesn't like Trump. They just want him investigated forever. Then the people who are just casual observers who just don't like Trump, who are Democrats, oh, you see, he's investigated. He must be. He's a criminal. Well, what did he do? He did this and that. Well, why hasn't he been indicted? Well, we're finding out. It's been 7 years, like the Titanic meme. It's been 84 years. They're not going to indict Trump on anything that they've tried. They might indict him on some new thing. They might just indict him on a previous investigation, knowing they'd lose in court, but as their last attempt at trying to stop the man. But executive privilege cannot outweigh a legitimate congressional demand for discovery or, grand jury testimony. But this is a special counsel. It's part of the DOJ. A partisan DOJ by Merrick Garland. And they say, well, they're going after Biden. That's more of a Clintonian thing. Hillary Clinton, and I believe she'll be, God bless her, I believe she'll be the 24 nominee for the Democratic Party. I really do. She had servers with top secret intel siphoned outside the U.S. government. You'd have to be a complete imbecile to think that's okay. But Trump, as commander-in-chief who had the power to declassify anything, that's a big problem. So everything's this morally relative Clintonian public relations operation. Well, Biden did, and Pence did, and Trump did. Well, Clinton, who cares, really? Like, no, if you know politics, if you understand what's going on, obviously what took place with servers is a trillion times worse. But see, again, nobody cares. That's ancient history. 2015, 2016, we haven't moved from. But to many people, that's ancient history. Anyway, the Supreme Court will will back Trump because there's not a crime that he's actually covering up. They're trying to find a crime. With Nixon, they had the crime already. With Trump, they're continuing in Georgia and New York. They're trying to find something, and they use the words grand jury, criminal probe, and then you get the journalists who despise Trump. It's a criminal probe. They're not going to find anything. It's been 7 years already since he's. It's been 8 years since 2015. We're going on 8 years since Trump decided to run, and the media was leveled against him. I mean, we're gonna get to almost a decade of this pretty soon in 2014, 2015, 2015, 2025. It'll be like 10 years of just this apoplectic hysteria. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe to this channel.